Okay, we are live. Are you ready to get absolutely nuts, John?
Let's get nuts.
Okay. On today's episode of Playing Small is Canceled, we have a very special treat. He's a best-selling author, leadership expert, and global speaker who penetrates souls. No big deal. He is also the CEO of not one, but two companies, LearnLoft and the Sales Infrastructure. And his best-selling book, Building the Best, has become a go-to guide for leaders seeking to cultivate high-performing teams. Big facts. He's been named to LinkedIn Top Voices and is a trailblazer in the realm of leadership development. And his work has been featured in Inc.com and CNBC Money, just to name a few. He's just a juggernaut in all facets of life and a terrific human being. Please welcome the insightful, empowering, and accomplished, the brilliant and charismatic, handsome John Eades. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great, Craig. I like the handsome part. That meant a lot to me, so I appreciate that.
Okay, good. I'm very happy that I did good by you. We were having an amazing conversation before we went live. So much, in fact, that we're like, all right, let's put a pin in that and say this for the juicy stuff. So much alignment. I love all the work that you do for our community, for everyone that's going to catch a replay. If you were not familiar, do a couple things. Check out all this content, grab this book, all the things. What we're going to do today is we're just going to dive in and have an unbelievable conversation. Before I do, I have a little icebreaker for you. Are you ready for me?
I love icebreakers.
Okay. Why do your choices matter?
I would say that's the easiest question I've been asked. Why do your choices matter? Because choices stack, they compound. So we might think that a decision is small or a choice that we're making is small, but one small choice becomes bigger choices down the road. It's a little bit like a habit. It starts as a small or string, a thread, but over time, those choices compound and it becomes a strong rope. So the small decisions that you make that you might think are not that important actually are. I tell this to the leaders that we coach, my kids, doesn't matter. How you do everything is how you do everything. So if you think a small choice matters, you'll think a big choice matters. And that's exactly why the choices that you make daily matter, because they compound.
So good. And I love what you said there, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. Even something that doesn't seem like it's a big deal, you should always be intentional because it might just have a ripple effect down the line, right?
That's exactly right. And what you do is you start to create levels for yourself, Craig. Uh, Instead of comparing yourself to anybody else, what you're really doing is, how do I become the very best version of myself? And to do that, I don't have to make big leaps, but I've got to go up a level. And when you make choices and you give your very best effort towards the success of that choice, you give yourself the chance to go up a level. And I think that's when you start to think about your life, your career, your relationships. What you're really trying to do is go up a level constantly. And to do that requires good choices.
When you say go up a level, you speak my language. I love this stuff. What does it look like for someone that wants to go to their next level? What are some things that they need to do to ascend to their next level?
All right. So I don't want to confuse the audience, but let's go through the 4 stages of development, because I
Let's
think
go.
this will be helpful. And as we go through these 4 stages of development, what I want anybody listening to or listening on the replay to think about is, now, and I'm in a certain stage, could I get to another level within that stage? I'm not necessarily trying to get to the next stage, but can I get to another level in that? And I'll describe it as we go. All right. The
Yep.
first stage is awareness. This is when you become aware of what you need to get better at, what you need to get good at. You are in this stage where you are like swimming in an ocean and you're not sure what's there or what you're supposed to do. I'm in the awareness stage. If you think about this as like a student in school, they're a freshman year, Craig. They're going in, they don't know anyone, they don't know a teacher, they barely know what class to go to next. They need help. Stage 1. Stage 2 is called building critical mass, or BCM. And what this means, Craig, is when you're at this stage, you're making a lot of errors, you're working slowly, you're struggling, you doubt yourself a lot because you see somebody else, Craig, and you're like, they're so much further advanced than I am. Like, I'm never going to get to that level. And that is that never idea. That's an extreme globalizing word. It evaporates hope. So when we're in this stage of building critical mass, we're just we're trying things. It's not working. We're struggling. We doubt ourselves a lot. The third stage is called accelerated performance. This is when the skill, the job, it gets easier. We get better at it. We start to really be able to go. We get trusted with more responsibility. We believe in ourselves more. We're not perfect, but we're able to accelerate performance at a pretty good clip. And that fourth level is sustained excellence. This is when you wake up, Craig, and you're really good at what you do, and you're good at it. Now, here's where the levels comes in, Craig. You might have a center in college basketball that you might say they're at a level 3 or they're at a level 4. Let's just say they're at a level 4. They've sustained excellence. They're a very good college basketball player, making $1 million at the University of Maryland. But what about the starting center in the NBA? Because they're both at a stage 4, but there's levels within stage 4. You might get to now you might get to an all-star, then you might get to an all-pro. You get the idea. There are always levels that you can get to within the stage of development that you're currently in.
This is unbelievable. Straight up. This is a 7-figure conversation. I encourage everybody to grab the journal and run it back. I always say, like, one of the worst things that you could do spiritually is compare yourself to others. And even, first of all, not everyone is on the same level. But even if you are, you're in different places. So your level 2 is not the same as somebody else's. And it's kind of reminds me of what you just said, like level 4 college player, not the same arena or same consciousness as an NBA level 4 player. Just beautiful.
And it's not, I used to get really upset when people would compare themselves to somebody else. And we've all heard that comparison is the thief of joy, C.S. Lewis quote. And it really can be. It really can be the thief of your joy, and it can evaporate hope by comparing yourselves to others. So that's why I'm like, hey, can we compare ourselves against the best version of us? It's good to have a framework of what level of development we might be in or what stage of development. But now it's like, how can I just focus on getting a little bit better today than I was yesterday so I can go up a level and eventually get to another stage?
I love that you used the word awareness before, because when I think of awareness, I think of consciousness. And I think one of the most important things that we can do is to constantly elevate our awareness or consciousness. It's kind of a way of becoming unplugged and really being able to see what's going on. Awareness, is that very important for you?
Yeah, self-awareness is probably maybe the biggest thing. You're trying to help an executive leader do, you're trying to help a manager do, you're trying to help an athlete do, is become self-aware about where they currently are, not where they might think they are. We tend to think we're further along in our development or where we are than where we actually are. There's a study called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which basically says managers tend to think they're further along than they really are. And so what you're suggesting, Craig, is that can you be self-aware of where you actually are so you can get better? I remember there was a quote from the current head coach for the Philadelphia. No, he's not at the Sixers. He's with the Milwaukee Bucks now. Doc Rivers. And I'll never forget, I was listening to an interview with Doc Rivers, and he says, all improvement starts with the truth. All improvement starts with the truth. So if you're thinking awareness, self-awareness, if you're going to get better, we must start from a place of truth, of being aware of where we actually are so we can get better.
This is so fascinating to me because oftentimes there's your truth and then the truth.
That's such a good point.
Your truth is what you perceive to be possible and how you might show up. But the actual truth is, where are you at right now in regards to your current capacity? And how can we expand that capacity, right?
It's so true. And I like that idea just in general. It's the truth. And in order to do that, Craig, we often have to get help. We often have to do a 360 or ask our teammates, how am I doing? What can I do better? And unfortunately, most leaders tend to think that that's a weakness. if I have to go ask for help or ask people how I'm doing, I'm almost like looking for approval, or it's going to be looked at as a sign of weakness. But in reality, it's a strength. Because when you ask someone for help out of complete humility and vulnerability, it actually attracts people to us instead of detracts people to us. There's a quote that I just love, which is people are impressed by your strengths, but they connect to your weaknesses.
Ooh.
So what that does for us, Craig, is when we go ask someone for help, or, hey, I'm struggling with this and I could use your advice and how you see this, it actually creates a connection and they want to help you because they connect to that weaknesses, because guess what they have? Weaknesses. They're impressed by your strengths, but they connect to your weaknesses.
That is a nugget if I've ever heard one, my friend. It's so funny because I just think of like, tomorrow I'm doing a huge presentation in front of a lot of people in regards to building a personal brand. And one thing that just came to mind is what you just said. And it's like the highlight reels that social media tends to show you and showcase, those are cool. But people really relate and connect to the vulnerability. And sometimes that's weaknesses, because like, oh, that relates to me because I'm in that position, or I used to be in that position, or that's what I'm looking to improve. And to be able to showcase that is significantly more powerful than just showing all the wins.
Yeah. And it's not that you shouldn't show your wins, or it's not that you shouldn't talk about the great success that you help people have, which I'm sure you do, Craig. But they want to also understand that you're human and that you've gone through some struggles, and because they're going through struggles. And I'll give you a really great example of this. Would you mind if I'm just vulnerable for a second?
Please.
So you read all these things at the beginning of things that we've done or accomplished or written, and I'm very proud of those things. I don't shy away from them. But life is hard, man. And things happen whether you like it or not. And instead of acting like they're not, a few years ago, my wife of 14 years was struggling with some health-related stuff as it related to an eating disorder. And she decided to do this really incredible thing. And she went and got some help for this at 40 years old. And she's doing amazing. I've never been more proud of someone in her growth and development in my life. But she did something amazing, Craig. When she left, she wrote all these handwritten notes. And so every day, my kids, while their mom wasn't home, could reach their hand down in this bag and pull out a handwritten note from their mom when she wasn't there and didn't have a phone. And this one day, my little Lucy, who's 10 now, she reaches her hand in this bag, Craig, and she pulls out this note. She opens it, and it says, "It's not about what it is. It's about what it can become." Dr. Seuss. And I thought in that moment, I was so proud of my wife for what she was becoming. But I also think about your audience today. I think about you and your speech tomorrow. It's like, can you be real with people about the real things that you've had to navigate in life, and then use that for something that can give them strength or get them through something difficult right now? Because it is not all rainbows and butterflies, as they say.
That is gold. Thank you for sharing that, first of all.
Yeah, of course.
I just couldn't love this more. It's not about what it is, but what it can become. And to be honest with you, I never do something. I'm actually writing this down as we're speaking, because I don't want to forget those. Really, really, really powerful stuff. And I know, and we're going to get into this, you're one of the best in the world at leadership and showcasing how great leaders inspire action. And one of the things that I've experienced is one of the best things that a leader can do is showcase authenticity, vulnerability, and actually empathy to really get people to go to another level. Would you agree with that?
I would concur. I mean, there's lots of ways to do that. Certainly empathy is an enormous, let's define it. Let's just, so we're on the same page. Empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes and acting differently because of it. That's what it is. So there are times when you can't actually be in someone's shoes. I'm a man. There's times when you just, if it's a spouse or someone at work, you can't actually be in their shoes. But what you're trying to do is act differently because of what they're telling you or what you're experiencing. And that is extremely difficult. But again, it's a superpower as it relates to leadership. But you mentioned something earlier, which I think is people get wrong. And I think you're right. Leadership is an action-oriented thing. It's not the title that you have. It's not this role that you've been given in your organization. It is about the actions that you demonstrate in that role that makes you a leader. I like to play this game. You like games, Craig?
Love them.
All right. Let's play this game called Simon Says. Okay. Simon Says, put your hand in a circle like this. Put your hand in a circle like this. Put the circle on your cheek. Okay. Now, I went here, you went here. And why? Because I said cheek. My actions were here. So if you do this in a whole room, Craig, tomorrow in your talk, 80%, Simon Says, put your circle down. 80% of the room will go right to their chin. And the reason why is because your actions are always more powerful than your words. So when we start talking about leadership and actions, it's not about necessarily what you say as a leader to your team. It is about what you do that really matters. And that's why it is an action-oriented thing.
First of all, I love the exercise. I was like, did I hear him right? I thought he
No,
said
you did it right. You did it right.
I love it. When I think of leadership, I think of a consciousness that the camera's always on. In other words, it's not just in front of people. It's how you show up, how you behave, how you act. And you're right. Like someone could have a title on their door that makes them superior to you based upon current roles, but that does not qualify them as someone that can lead you. Right?
That is a skill. That is a skill that they have to earn. And we can inherit a lot of things. We have genetics are powerful monsters, and they can be good and they can be bad. And you can inherit some leadership genetic skills. Leadership Quarterly did this study, and what they found was that 24% of us from a leadership perspective is genetic. Something that we're born with. That means 76% is learned or developed. And even if you were born with this genetics, you still have to work hard to develop them. So that guy or that woman that has her name on the door that might have authority over you because of your role, she still has to go earn the skills and build the skills to lead people. Every title in the world, Craig, is going to be had by somebody else. Your leader, your title is temporary, but your impact is lasting. So if that's the case, my title on my door is just temporary. Somebody else's name is going to be on that door one day. But the thing that they can't take away from you is the impact that you have on other people while you're in that role. And to me, that's what matters.
Couldn't agree more. This is great. One of the things that you talk about, I think it's so beautiful, I'd love to unpack it, is you mentioned stop trying to force change and start unleashing it. For anyone that's listening right now, they're like, oh, that sounds cool. What exactly does he mean? How would you unpack that?
Well, part of any leader's job is to navigate change or unleash it in an organization. I was with an executive this morning, and he's like, I got all these things we need to do, and I would do it this way. And I'm thinking, a part of any leader's job is to enact or unleash a change in an organization, but how you do it matters. And so most people, what they do is they think, well, I'm going to force this change. I'm just going to forge my way through it. I'm just going to keep hitting the hammer until it happens. Unfortunately, most people don't like that because the first reaction to change is what, Craig?
Friction, resistance.
Friction, resistance. You get that stiff arm. You're like, hey, I'm like, no, not me, not now. It's our human instinct to put the stiff arm out and to reject the first semblance of change. So what a leader has to do is they have to understand that, and they got to work on unleashing it from within versus forcing it onto people, because that's where you get the stiff arm. And it's certainly a skill that leaders can can implement, which is how do I unleash that change within this organization versus force it. Not an easy one, not an easy one, but an important one.
Totally off the cuff, but it reminds me of, so I grew up Jewish.
Okay.
I was never really super religious. In fact, not that I was forced, but like kind of to go to Hebrew school and learn all these things. And I just didn't resonate with it. I didn't connect that. I didn't know why. And then years later, when I started really going down the spiritual path and studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, it helped me grow and unleash a much bigger appreciation for being Jewish. And I started to understand why. But I think the key there is it couldn't have been forced upon me for it to have been effective. It had to have been unleashed in a way that felt a little bit organic, as opposed to forced. And not the same, but it kind of reminds me of what you were just talking about.
You're spot on. I mean, anybody that is looking to expand their reach from a belief perspective, you're not going to force somebody to do it. And if they are forced, they're not going to like doing it. So the idea is like, how can you plant a seed? It's like plant a seed and then water the seed. You don't then blame the seed. You're like, hey, it wasn't watered. It didn't have enough sunlight. So if you're trying to enact change in your organization or in a business or on a team or within a kid or a person, what you're trying to do is plant a good seed and then water it. And then watch that change happen from within, because then they're much more likely to adopt it and enjoy it and love it. Now, there are always times where we feel forced to go do something. And as a parent, I have no qualms about your parents saying, hey, we're going to temple or we're going to X. You do what's best when your kids are young. But as they get older, you're much better served by planting a good seed and watching it grow.
100%. And even like, look, the work that you and I do, the soul mission stuff, we know a thing or two about elevating, but you can't really do that in your own home. You can't coach your spouse because you'll end up pushing them away. So something that I noticed is a way to unleash it, and there's many, and you know better than I, but one thing, even just the change of words, right? So instead of forcing someone to do something, I might say to my wife, it would mean a lot to me if... Right? Because then it doesn't feel like it's forced. Almost she thinks she's doing me a favor, even though I know it's for her own good.
Yeah, no, it's a great example. We can use relationships. Sometimes my wife will say, stop the coach talk, John. Stop coaching me. But I think there's something to that, which is allowing someone to decide to do it on their own. And there's nothing wrong with planting a seed that they want, that will cause them to do it, versus feeling like they have to do it.
100%. This is so good. Before we land the plane, I wanted to ask you, you study the greats, you have connections with them, you coach them, you speak to them. What are highest achievers that you've experienced? What do they do differently?
It's a good question. They have a bias for action. I mean, that is, if you really get down to what separates the best from the rest, they have a bias for action. It doesn't mean they don't slow down and do planning. It doesn't mean they don't take walks to think. They do. It doesn't mean they don't write their ideas down. They do. But they ultimately have a bias for action, meaning they know the only way that something meaningful is going to come of this is if they're willing to take action behind their words. And that could be a leader of an organization. It could be an athlete. They're not willing to just talk about it. They're willing to be about it. And I was, I don't know why this always stands out to me, but I had a mentor tell me, he said, John, you must act differently than you feel. And I started thinking, I'm like, well, there's a lot of days I don't feel like writing that blog. I don't feel like finishing that chapter of that book or coaching this person, but I have to act differently than I feel. And I think that is that bias for action. It doesn't really matter what it is. Are you the kind of person that has a bias for taking action? Because when you act, then you get a chance to learn. And when you learn, you get a chance to improve. So that's the way I would think about it if I had to simplify it. They have a bias for action.
They don't talk about it, they be about it.
They just are about it, man.
It reminds me of, like, when you're coaching someone, I know for me at least, look, we don't want believers, we want doers. It's great when you believe it and you consume it, but we want to see you be proactive, right? Take it and then be about it.
That's right.
That makes the best relationships.
Yeah, it does. And now I want to say it's okay that you're not always, like, you're human. You're gonna fall short sometimes. You're not gonna do what you say you're gonna do. You're gonna watch one more show than you should have, or you're gonna. I'm not asking anybody to be perfect. What I'm looking for is progress. It's like progress over perfection. It's like a lot of people, what holds them back from action is that the idea that I'm not going to be perfect. So I'm going to wait until I'm going to be perfect. And I like to think of it as, how can you just make progress, Craig? And by making progress, you got to take one step towards it. I'm not asking for 10 steps or 20 steps or you to know every single step that you're going to need to take to get there. But what I am asking for is one step, one actionable step.
This is unbelievable. I know I could talk to you for 10 hours straight. I'll ask one more and we'll have some fun. Wrap it up.
You're good.
One of the things you often talk about is cultivating a teamwork-driven culture. For someone just like myself, if I'm being honest, we're building a team now and we're starting to scale. How important is that for you to see companies really employ a teamwork-driven culture?
Well, let's define culture. Culture is the shared values and beliefs that guide thinking and behavior. I'll say it again. Culture is the shared values and beliefs that guide thinking and behavior. So if you're going to successfully lead a team, it starts with a culture of behaviors. So if you put this in order, you would think leader, culture, behaviors, performance. Leaders, culture, behaviors, performance, because the leader creates the culture produces the behaviors become your results. So if you're trying to build a team now, Craig, and you say, I want a teamwork and culture, I would say, what are the shared values and beliefs that are going to guide the thinking and the behavior of your team members? And I would get really clear on what separates the culture that you're trying to create, so you can recruit people like that and you can coach people like that. So then once they're on your team, they got a chance to have behaviors in alignment for the results that you're trying to get. It's actually like we talked about the Jets earlier. It's any head coach in the NFL, what they're first looking at is, how do I create a culture? What are the behaviors that we want common that are going to lead to our results? How do I get the right people that can live out and believe those behaviors? And if I do those two things well, the results should take care of themselves.
Amen.
So that's what I would, if I'm you, I'm thinking right now, I'm hiring people, I got team members. What are the behaviors that we need to, shared behaviors that we need to commonly get aligned around that are going to help fuel our performance?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Doers.
Yeah, doers. But if you don't get aligned around what the common behaviors are, I'll give you a story about this.
Sure.
I'm not a Penn State fan. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there. Or I'm not a Penn State fan. But their head coach came in after a really heavy turmoil situation. They had lost scholarships. They were in a dumpster fire. They had all these issues. And their head coach came in. The first thing he did was establish a set of core values or behaviors that he would start to align his team members around. And he came up with 4. And every single week, he didn't give out an award to the very best player on the team of the game. He gave out an award to the team member or coach that best lived out those 4 core values. So now, if you're more focused on the process than the outcome, and we're starting to reward and recognize the right behaviors, values on a team, Now all of a sudden, what do the other team members want to do? They want to emulate those behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden you're going to get more of the right behaviors, which will end up giving you the best results. And now you can see what Penn State football and their head coach have done over the last 10 years is they've sustained some level of excellence. And I wouldn't be surprised. I hope they don't, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go on to win a national championship at some point.
Beautiful. I agree.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Before we land the plane, you have so many different things going on. What are you most pumped about right now? And where can our audience and community maybe stay involved and stay in your world?
Man, I wake up excited, Craig. Like I just wake up ready to go. I mean, I'm working on, we just came out with a new newsletter called The Optimistic Outlook. Some of our leaders that we were coaching and working with were struggling with limited self-belief and mindset. So I started sending them these daily emails to just get their mind right before their workday started. And one day I had set up 5 of them to go out. And the 6th day, I didn't send one. And one of the executive coaching clients said, "Hey, I didn't get my email today." And I was like, "Well, I didn't mean it to be in perpetuity." But I thought, you know what? If it can help her, maybe it can help others. So we started a new newsletter called The Optimistic Outlook. It's a short daily email for free to get people in that optimistic and positive outlook on life. So that's probably what I'm most excited about right now. But I get excited about a lot of things, Craig.
I know you do. How can everybody sign up for it?
You could just search Optimistic Outlook, John Eades on the old internet. It'll come up. You can get it on our LinkedIn page, John Eades on LinkedIn. Those are the best places to get it. You can get it on johneades.com. Any of those are 3 good spots.
Okay. This is amazing. Let's have some fun, a little rapid fire, 1 or 2 word answers, maybe 30 seconds. Are you ready for me?
I'm ready.
John, what is your favorite movie?
That's a hard one. I'm going to go with Gladiator, the first one. The second one was terrible.
Can I just tell you, I knew you were going to say that.
Oh.
It's one of my favorites too. And I love that you said it. And about the second one, it was a movie that did not need to be made.
It did not need to be made. It was one of the worst I've ever seen. It was almost sad. It almost put shade on the first one. So
it was
I love the first one. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was a cash grab.
It was.
But
it worked. It worked.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Your favorite guilty pleasure?
I love vanilla ice cream with frozen blueberries. Just love it. I wish I could eat it daily, but in my 40s, that probably wouldn't be a good idea.
I love how clear you are on that. Okay. I might know the answer to this one, maybe not. Your favorite workout?
My favorite workout. I started a new workout and I'm really starting to like it. It's called Golf Forever. And it's a program that you do at home. They send you these weighted sticks. So I'm really into Golf Forever. I'm kind of trying to keep up with the young kids from competitive amateur golf. So Golf Forever is my favorite workout right now.
Beautiful. Okay. Your favorite book?
I have 2. I'm going to give you 2. My first one is a book called The Father's Tale. And it's it is the longest book I've ever read in completion. I never thought I would read it. My brother gave it to me 12 years ago. He's a Catholic priest. And I never thought I would read it. And it was the best book about fatherhood I've ever read. And it meant a lot to me. So that's number 1. The second is Men's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. That made a big impact on me. But I read a lot, man. I listen to a lot, Craig. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I love the smell of a good book. But for me, audio book helps me run through them faster and even take notes.
Yeah, well, I'll just show you real quick. I got this is a new one I have on my desk. The 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom. He's great. I have this one, The Well-Ordered Family. That's by Conor Gallagher. He's awesome. So I'm a big time reader. I have Courage is Calling by Ryan Holiday right here. So I'm a listener, but I'm constantly reading.
I know. Developing. You're at the gym all day, the mental gym. I love it.
The mental gym. That's it.
Okay. Final one. Your favorite morning ritual essential?
Well, I pray. My favorite morning. I love a really good cup of coffee.
Same.
Like obsessed. I just love the smell of it. I like to drink it.
The
So I would
caffeine,
say
cool. The caffeine's
coffee.
good, but more the spiritual, right?
It is. It's like this. It's more than a cup of coffee to me, Craig.
I
But
agree.
I'll give you one legit one that I think your audience might appreciate. I take my kids to school in the morning, and there's a guy in the Northeast. His name, he has a podcast called the Success Hotline, and he's a uh, he's a professor at a university, Monmouth College. I think he's where he is now. And he just did this radio recording every single day. And you would call this line and he would just record his, and you would listen to it just like it was before a podcast. And now it's a podcast. So when I'm in the car with my kids, we listen to the Success Hotline on the way to school. And now we read the Optimistic Outlook. So I take these 15 minutes with my 12 and 10-year-old really seriously, that I know I don't get to do that forever. So that's probably my favorite ritual, is getting a chance to drive my kids to school and just pour into them.
I love it. It's very inspiring, because I just got married in September, and God willing, one of the most exciting things I look forward to doing in life is to be a dad. I am a dad now, but he's a puppy, a human baby, and just the way that you light up when you talk about some of the stuff with the kids is really beautiful.
Yeah, there's so many things we take for granted that we're going to get to do forever. And I know we're not going to. So I know I'm 3 years away of him driving his own car with his sister in it. And I'm cut out of the mix. And so I want to take advantage of those days and times that I do get, because we just don't know when they're going to end.
Yeah. Beautiful, brother. This was amazing. Hang on for 1 sec. Thank you so much for stopping by today, John, and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets.
You're welcome. I appreciate you having me.